Recording in progress.
Okay, all right. So, open forum starts first. Who's got questions? I already have yours, Dennis. Wayne, you had an issue a couple of meetings ago with, was it your Wi-Fi, or there was something else you had an issue with?
I don't remember that, but I'm having trouble with my my Rainforest device.
Okay.
On my phone, when I click on it, it takes a long time to come up, and when it does, it displays and then it disappears. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what might be causing that.
Okay, let me do this.
I think you've got a similar thing with your electric readings.
Yeah, but mine is only, for the most part, if I wanted to hook it up, I'd plug it into a USB port. And I'm wondering if the range...
See, I've got this Eagle wireless device.
Yeah, it's the Eagle 3, or there's an older Eagle. You have a 3.
It's Eagle 3.
Yeah. Let's do this. Eagle 3 disconnect. Oh, you could always do the factory reset. That's probably not a good idea.
I've turned my phone off, redone it. I'm thinking of deleting the app and reloading it.
Well, before you do that, have you power cycled the actual Rainforest Automation Eagle?
No, I haven't done that. Okay.
I mean, because if it's been running for years...
No, it's been running since...
another thing, whenever I have a situation where I have a device that's misbehaving, if it doesn't work with the app on my phone, then I go back to itself, that maybe you need to be recycled too, and power cycle him.
It's only been running since January, so I'll try that then.
Sometimes I've seen issues if there's been power glitches at all, where it partially power glitches and comes back, and then it just goes brain dead. Yeah,
that could have been. We were out of town for about 10 days, so I don't know what happened during that time.
Well, that's one thing I should take a look at. I should get the FCC ID on the Rainforest Automation and see what kind of board they put inside of there. And if they have the software for it available as well, and some sort of open source. Well,
they just updated this. This is they updated the app. They changed things, so I'm not so happy with the latest app as what original had.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was able to survive the shutdown of the Wemo servers.
Okay.
So everything works fine. I've only had an occasional glitch when I tell Google to do something. It has responded at least on one occasion that I know of. Wemo is no longer supported. And then I gave it the command slightly different with a little more description of what I wanted it to turn on, and it was perfectly okay with that.
Well, next month I might be able to tell you how I've progressed with my UMA. AT&T is getting rid of my landline. So I've just purchased an UMA and some new wireless phones. So I haven't had a chance to get it started yet.
If you're going to transfer your number to the UMA, then you should do so while you still have access to your landline. And not too late, because once they turn off your landline, you can't transfer it.
Right. No, I understand that. So that's my next step.
Yeah, it's working fine for me for, hold on, when did I do this? 2013.
Wow.
I've had several UMA base units that I've had, but because I have the UMA Premier, if I have the base unit fails, they just send me a new one, and I send back the old one.
Okay.
And I've done that twice already, and I'm perfectly happy to do that and pay the additional price for the Premier, because you can block calls and you get the second
Right.
stuff.
That's that extra service that you can, like, what, $10 a month or so?
Yeah, it's discounted a little further if you buy it a year in advance. So it's like 140 a year or something like that.
Okay.
So otherwise you pay a little bit more on the per month charge, but definitely worth it compared to what I was spending for AT&T, and
Yep.
then subsequently one of the other things that was recommended by the Citizens Utility Board to discount your landline costs. I was paying up to $80 a month for 2 lines.
Yeah.
Way back when, but now
Right.
they don't have any landlines anymore
Yeah.
to speak of.
Right.
I still have yet to try and actually send a fax through UMA. I'll have to do that at some point in time. Fortunately, most of the places that you would have to send a fax back and forth to have migrated to allow you to upload a scanned document.
Yeah.
Right. So medical professionals have either they have some either app where you go in and have a secure upload to do that. That's the other way to get around it.
Yep.
Yes. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sure we got some other ones here.
I don't have a question, but I recently discovered I was having an internet problem, getting only a fraction of what I should get in speed, and it turned out to be I traced it down with some tools to the very first switch after the modem router, and it was an 8-port unmanned type of Ethernet switch.
Yep, Netgear probably, or a not though. I'm trying to think what's the other one.
It had 5 electrolytics. One of them you could see was going bad.
So you had to replace it.
Well, fortunately, I already had the replacement available and stuck it in.
Come on, focus. Not going to focus.
A little blurry.
Well, it's deliberately blurring it because it doesn't.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
16 port, 1 gigabit unmanaged.
Yeah, but I don't need that. I have 4 switches, but they're scattered around. So I only have the 4 ports out of the modem router and 1 switch, and that's all I have really needed in that. But I did discover that. Yeah. Now he's got the small 5-port, but
Yeah, I've got a 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got a 5.
I
have a 5 and an 8 in my office now, along with another 8, but the other 8 is only 100 meg. And it goes into 10 and hundreds.
I have 2 5s and 3 8s, 8 ports, but they're not all in one location. In fact, I've got one under the desk that I'm at right now. I got another one over an 8 port near where the Ethernet comes out of the wall, and then I've got a 5 port that is basically set up to go into the kitchen.
I've had the 5 port like Wayne has for a while, and every once in a while, again with power glitches, that one will lock up while the other 8 port is running fine. And I notice right away it says you don't have internet. Like, yes, I do.
Yeah.
I can see the blinky lights. They're like, oh, maybe I don't have internet. So I'll try again and find out, okay, that's the issue. I mean, I have seen other things that happen, like when you plug this particular laptop does not have the capability of turning off the Wi-Fi when it plugs into an Ethernet port. There's no option on the driver to disable one when the other one comes in. And the turning on and off is only done through the online settings in the icon that's in the sys tray. It's the only way you can turn it on and off. There's no keystroke to turn on and off the Wi-Fi. And usually when I have both of them on, that's when I've seen some errors occur, especially if another machine is trying to access shared volumes. So if you have like, you go to the Windows Explorer and you use the network and you scan the network, you find another device and you're going to try and access the remote hard drive on another machine. If both Wi-Fi and Ethernet are turned on at the same time and both being used, that's what can cause the issue. Because technically you have two different IP addresses requesting the information to the remote computer.
Well, the 8-port that I had that failed, I had an exact same maker 8-port available that I had as a spare anyhow. And I decided, what the heck, after I found out it was electrolytics that were bad in the old one, I went to check the other one. So I took it apart and found out there's no electrolytics in it at all.
Maybe they use tantalums instead.
Don't know.
Because they won't look like a can. They'll look like a solid piece.
This is a very small, low-level surface type circuitry. So,
well, the only time you would use electrolytics is usually on the power supply lines to smooth the any effects on a power-hungry chip from the other chips, and you can get away not doing that by using smaller capacitors closer to the chips.
Well, the big, I have two 1000 microfarad, and those are for filtering the power. And
yeah, but if you're using 1000 MFD, then you're filtering amps. You're not filtering milliamps.
all I know is, bottom line, one of the two 1000's got a bulge on top. It hasn't broken apart, which
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen.
already shot.
Yeah.
If you pull it out and you measure it with the capacitance meter, you'll find it only has a fraction of its original capacitance, and it probably is shorted as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the failure mode on, that's called an aluminum oxide electrolytic, probably.
But the funny part about it is replacements. I got to get a minimum of 5 1000s, and the individual cost, even times 5, is far less than what they're going to charge for shipping the damn things.
Okay, yeah, that's what it'll do. I usually have a supply of parts that dwarf what would be originally one of your Radio Shacks. I had collected, there was a funny story back in the days of Motorola Communications being a rather large facility in Schaumburg. They've since torn down most of the large structures that were there. The only thing left are the 2 towers, and one of the other buildings that was an automotive building has now been sold to somebody else, I believe. But at one time they had manufacturing on site. And the other thing they had was this thing called an engineering stockroom. So if you were working on a project and you needed something and you had a job number, you could go in and find just about anything you wanted from the engineering stockroom. And then as the manufacturing wound down and they only had engineers there doing new designs, they basically said, now, if you need something, come in and get it. Because there was they no longer had to staff a person to watch the contents of the stockroom. But you just had to leave a note that says, I used up all of the 1000 microfarad 25 volt electrolytics, order more. But there was, what would happen is, when a group was summarily dismissed from the hallowed confines, what would happen is when they went to clean out that area for subsequent reuse by another group, they'd bring the dumpsters and basically dump everything into the dumpsters, and then you would hear some of the ham radio operators say, "Hallway Ham Fest in aisle 19." And that means that they just closed down some group in aisle 19 and they had the dumpsters there. And if you were looking for amounts of components, you could go there, pick up a box of stuff, and maybe you had like the resistor assortment of 8th watt resistors of every possible size you'd ever need. But I remember a number of those that hallway ham fests, and I would partake of those things as well. Many years ago. Okay, any other questions? I can start the presentation early if we'd like. Any feeling on that? Okay, well, I will start it then. Because it's not exactly small, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first question. Oh, there, good. Let's clear that off. All right, immutable Linux system requirements and other topics. Update on my Wemo. I had moved all of my Wemo devices to Home Assistant, and I migrated all of the Wemo devices to a DHCP reservation to preserve their IP addresses. For the most part, nothing has changed. Everything is working as supposed to. I haven't had any other issues. The devices can be turned on and off, and I switched all of their automation to Home Assistant, and the light turns on, the light turns off automatically. So long for Wemo support. However, I still haven't seen any of the Wemo devices actually come up with an orange light, which may have occurred if they couldn't reach the servers. And then I recall seeing something else on the news that identified that there might be a class action suit against Belkin because of them deciding to discontinue support for Wemo devices without offering some alternative. So we'll see if that class action goes forward. I think it's in California, but we'll see if it goes forward. I bought all of my devices well before their cutoff date, but as long as they continue to do what they need to do, I'm perfectly happy with it. Immutable Linuxes. I had several questions that had been posed to me in an email, and one of them had a question about immutable Linux, and it was suggested from a Google search to look at Fedora, Silverblue, Vanilla OS, and OpenSUSE Aeon. The questions were whether an older laptop would support the versions. And the quick answer is obviously, it depends on how old the laptop. And why an immutable index? Well, it's a version of Linux that's locked down so that misbehaving programs would be unable to compromise the system. In fact, the entire root file system is read-only, and it may actually have things like copy on write, so it can preserve any of the write requests to read-only file systems into a read-write file system, which could be made permanent if you needed it or not. Okay, so it usually requires or utilizes containers to do a lot of this functionality. Because it's locked everything down and the container is, for the most part, read-only, and only a read-write persistence area might be like var. One of the var subdirectories would be the only one you could write. That intrinsically gives you a higher security because it's harder to make changes to the thing that's running. It should offer improved reliability and stability. Reliability from the point that it's on a read-only file system. There are no writes occurring to the file system. Therefore, it should remain unchanged. And unless there was an original bug in the code, you probably wouldn't see it. Also, the stability increases as well because you're isolating all of the writes of the file system to another file system. And you can choose whether to keep excuse me, keep them or throw them away. Atomic updates and easy rollbacks. So when you have to do an update and it has to update the system, then it can basically go in, make the right change, update the read-only file system, and then restart that copy of Linux. And because you start off with something that's identical and you apply the updates, you should have a consistent update path across duplicates of the same system. And container focused workflows, yes. So they use containers. But the minute you start talking containers, you're usually talking a 64-bit processor. It ain't going to happen too well on a 32-bit processor unless these are tiny containers. So this is what Google responded on some of the requirements. So I just said, use Google to try and guess at what you need here. And if you have the right search terms, you're going to get narrowed down to pretty much what you need to know. So it has usually 64-bit processors, at least 4 gigs of RAM, and somewhere between 30 and 50 gigs of storage. So chances are old laptops aren't going to make it unless you can upgrade them somehow. And a Pentium M is not a 64-bit processor. There are some Pentiums that can do 64 bits, but that's not one of them. Yes, there's the atomic updates, app strategy. So Fedora Silverboot using GNOME KDE. Vanilla OS, same thing, 64-bit processor and a little bit more storage, possibly because of the way they did the partitions differently. And OpenSUSE Aeon, probably about the same in terms of requirements, but you have alternatives. So here's the thing to take away from this. 64-bit processor, 4 gigs of RAM, that's a good starting point. And then you can see whether or not you can update the drive to an SSD, if that's possible. Chances are, though, depending on how old the laptop is, you might not even have SATA interfaces on that machine. The old Dell 600 and 610, those were both parallel IDE drives. And there's not many parallel IDE SATA or SSD drives. There are a few, but they're pricey and they're rather small. I mean, you could try and find a parallel IDE to SATA adapter and use that, but usually that doesn't fit still inside of where the laptop had the hard drive. Okay, so what you could do is say, what is the latest Linux distribution that will run on a Dell Latitude? And then give your model number, whether it's a 600 or 610. And that'll tell you what you could run on it and what you might be able to get away with. It still might need some more storage than you have on there, but if you have, I don't know, probably you have at least 6 gig, maybe a 13 gig hard drive on it, you might have enough in there to be able to install a local copy of one of these versions of Linux onto it. You would get rid of the existing operating system, and it would run Linux. Again, you want probably a rather lightweight version of Linux to be able to install on these machines because there's not a lot of resources for it to use. Puppy Linux will work, and it can run completely from RAM if you want. And there's a couple other ones that are mentioned here as well. The one I've seen Puppy, and there's been a couple of others that are anti-X Linux, you know, but they're out there. The other thing you could do, while you could run it with 2 gigabytes of RAM, if you could find the right DDR2 chips for that RAM, and you could put 4 gig in it if the motherboard will support it. Good question. Does the motherboard support it? Not all motherboards will support more than 2 gig of memory. And then if you could put an SSD in there, that's like running it out of a very fast flash drive. 32-bit versions. Okay, the D610 was a Pentium 32-bit Pentium M processor. So it's not likely you're going to get a new chip to put in there. So you have to find a 32-bit ISO when you want to look for that version of Linux. Don't try and run the 64-bit. It ain't going to run. And the desktop environment, the different kinds of user interfaces, and you can play with those and see which one works best for you. Okay, let's go back. Where did I have? That was that. The other thing, you get another slightly different what Linux versions will run with a web GUI. You get the same first page, but this is the second page of the best GUI interfaces to try and use. Low resource usage GUIs, XFace is another one you could use. And again, the same caveats, upgrading, the memory to at least 2 gig is recommended, okay? And the web browser, this is a problem where you run into. If you could run the Chrome or Firefox, the problem I ran into even on Win 7 with the 2 gig machine, or actually I had 3 gig available, is Chrome would run out of memory on some websites. So if your goal is to be able to surf the web, you're probably looking for at least a 4 gig machine. Okay, next topic. Where to obtain technical information. Where do I go? Google is pretty good at finding most of the stuff that I'm trying to look for. Saves me searching through old manuals and such. So I will just have the right frame search, but you have to frame it correctly in order to limit what you're going to wade through. You don't just do solve computer issues, because it's going to tell you every possible issue for every possible person on the planet. And you don't have enough time to go through that number of search issues. If you're looking specifically for something like Windows 11 error code and that hex number, okay, that's a much better way to search for what you're looking for and pull up the very distinctive, here's what I want, I need an answer. Am I going to have to use regedit, or am I going to have to do a restore? Oh, okay, now I know what to do. Looking into items already on your computer. You have this thing called the Windows Event Viewer, and you can see right away if there's any critical or error or just warnings that have been logged, and to see whether or not you should do something about them. I finally, on this machine, happened to look there and happened to see some errors that have kept on being repeated. I was complaining about the fact I'd never changed the workgroup designation on this, and it was arguing with the router about who should be the manager of the workgroup. So I said, fine, you're in a different workgroup, changed it, rebooted it, and guess what? Errors are gone away. So sometimes looking on your own machine to see whether or not errors are happening before you notice a degradation in performance helps. Other places that I subscribe to, being an electronic engineer for years and a principal staff engineer, I used to regularly have some of the trade journals like Electronic News, EDN, Computer Design. There's a number of those technical organizations and publications. I still have EDN that I'm subscribed to. Does not cost me anything. And there's a lot of interesting columns and articles that I frequent. Windows Secrets is another excellent choice. If you subscribe to Windows Secrets, you can access some of the things specific to when Windows updates are going to be posted to your machine, see which ones to stay away from. Susan Bradley, who is the current owner / manager of Windows Secrets, has a patch list and a master patch list, which are excellent resources if you are thinking about posting the next month Windows updates and you're hesitant as to whether your machine is going to do a blue screen of death or not. That's a very good choice to look there and see what she has rated the current environment at. If it's at DEFCON 3, you might want to say, I'm not going to update this month. I'm going to hold off for another 3 weeks because it sounds like Microsoft stepped on their own petard again. Other places that I look, techrepublic.com, I have subscribed to some of their newsletters. Free Software Federation, fsf.org, is another good source, especially if you want to help with free software and you're a programmer type and you have extra time available, you could lend it to some of their things that they want to do. I also have a xdadevelopers.com that has some relatively technological articles in it, and some of them fall into the same areas that I have, like finding out about Home Assistant and how it's excellent source. One of the columns I follow, and I mentioned earlier before everyone got on, is it's a column by Brian Diepert on edn.com, and he has it's interesting looking at what he's done in the past. He used to live near Tahoe and had frequent issues with lightning strikes being up on the top of that area, knocking out a lot of his equipment. Well, he moved to Colorado, but I don't think he went down in elevation at all. I think he's still up on a mountaintop somewhere, because he still has problems where a close lightning strike takes out a switch and his cable router. But it's interesting listening to his perils, but he frequently does a number of teardowns of common devices. He's done where he's purchased devices from some of the Google sites where, and Amazon sites where they've had discounted or returns, so you can get something dirt cheap, and he'll buy one, and if it doesn't work, he'll use it for a teardown, and he tears it apart and takes pictures of everything and shows, here's what it was made with, and here's what's in it, and it's very interesting. One of his teardowns, however, was one of these electronic Wi-Fi switches. It was the Casa switch. Casa and Topo are both made by the same company, TP-Link, which is based in China and ships all of its stuff here. The article is this one right here that happens to be where he took apart one of these and he breaks it down, looks into, tries to take pictures of the circuit boards. He got it all the way down, but the main circuit board was still wired into this thing, and he wasn't ready to start unsoldering the whole thing to pull it apart further. So he went to go look using one of these other searches that I use, the FCC OET search, which I've used as well to look at the FCC certifications and then find inside of those pictures of the circuit boards when they went through certification. Well, he went through and looked for one of these certifications, but the certification did not have the photos he was looking for. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, but he noticed that there wasn't any internal photos on that particular FCC certification. See, there's a right here, this thing that says http fcc.io/ and then that's the FCC ID you can look for. So that's the quick way of looking for something. Well, he pulled that one up and there wasn't any photos of it. And he was trying to find, some of the stuff. I think this is the one he was looking at. It was a close one, but it wasn't the one he was looking for. Well, I looked in it further, and I saw that inside of the filing he had, inside of it, it said this supersedes this FCC ID, which was a different one. And when I pulled that one up, that one had the photos he was looking for. So here's when I responded. I posted it back to him on the CDN website, and that's exactly what he was looking for. Now, normally I don't actually pull in stuff from somebody else's website without a copyright attribution, but since I was a part author of it, I can use my own comments without copyright. But there's the copyright. Okay, FCC searches. Any device that requires an FCC certification will have to have it approved by the FCC, and that approval process involves them submitting devices for testing. Anything that basically transmits over the airwaves will have to have one of these testing. So if you have a Zigbee device, if you have a Wi-Fi device, if you have a two-way radio, they all have to have some sort of certification. This is a way to look up their submission, and this is a matter of public record. However, some items have been requested for propriety, not to be show everything. They won't show you the manual or the functional block diagram of the device. They will show you a lot of information. They may show you a user manual. They will show you internal photos and external photos. Both are very useful because usually you can see the chip designations on the surface of the chip, so you can figure out, that's a 4 gig RAM chip there, and this is a EEPROM here, and this is something else over here. Oh, this is an EE memory. Okay, I can see what they're doing here. Oh, I bet you this is running WRT software inside of here, because you can infer by some of the pieces that are on there what they're doing. So there's 2 different searches. This is the first search, which is basically the front end. This is the detailed search on the second one. Usually when you look at the FCC ID, you either going to take the first 3 or the first 5 characters, and then the balance goes into the product code. Sometimes it doesn't match exactly on the product code. Either they had a hyphen in there or something else, but you can partially search by only typing some of the first characters of the product code, and then it will give you pages of ones submitted. If you just did the FCC ID 3 or 5 digit characters, you might see pages and pages of these things dating back to 20 some odd years ago. So here's where he wanted to find the picture of the thing, and he couldn't find it. But if you go further, you'll find it in another reference. So the other place that you can use, if the official government site doesn't work, there's another place called fccid.io. It is not the government website. It is a third-party, quote, user-friendly search engine and database. However, I found stuff in that I could never find on the government site, even though it says it's pulling its information from the government site. So I don't know how they differ, but they do. And I've been able to find things. One of the times when I had to do this was when I did the Ting presentation about 5 years ago. I could not find that FCC ID in the FCC database. I did find it on FCCIO. So both of these help you find what you're looking for, okay? And for an example, what I did was I searched for my microwave, my refrigerator, and my stove, all of which have either Wi-Fi or their possible RF radiators. So I went and pulled those information, and there's the microwave. Now, technically, the microwave is not a radiator, okay? But it isn't supposed to radiate anything more than about 1 milliwatt around the outside of the door. So they measure to see whether or not it complies with that restriction, and that's part of their FCC certification on a microwave. Used to be you could allow them up to 5 milliwatts of radiation around the edge. Now, this would be bad if you had Wi-Fi in the area, because a microwave operates on the equivalent of channel 10 on the 2.4 gigahertz band. It's at 2450 megahertz. And that is exactly in the middle of channel 10. And that means all the channels from about 7 on up to 11 are affected by a microwave oven that leaks. So if you have issues trying to receive on your LAN, and it happens to be when the microwave is turned on, time to go clean the seal on that, make sure there's no foreign matter keeping the thing from shutting all the way, because even a small piece of residue can allow that 2 kilowatts of energy to get out. LG refrigerator. Okay. So I did the LG refrigerator, and I did not find it on the FCC OET site. I did find it on the FCCIO site. So I did, and it was able to pull up this picture. This big thing at the top of the refrigerator is supposed to be where the Wi-Fi and control logic lives. This is all the Wi-Fi is this little circuit board. And there's something on the back as well. So, I mean, it's not just this one chip. There's some chips on the back and some additional connectors. But this was certified as a module. That means they did not submit an entire refrigerator to test. All they did was test the module. And as long as the module is installed and operated the same way that their testing was operated on, then they pass their FCC certification. But you can see right in the label, FCC ID is right on the inside of the refrigerator. Okay. I have a Samsung stove and it's got Wi-Fi. Do I let it connect to the Wi-Fi? No. For good reason. It's not necessarily appropriate that I need to connect a gas appliance up to the Wi-Fi, so if it ever gets compromised, it can turn on. No, not a good idea. But in this case, here's the FCC ID on the third of 3 labels that was the hardest one to find, mounted above the pull-out drawer on the inside. So I found that one, took a picture of it, and looked it up on the regular FCC OET page, and it had the modules and had a 16-page manual on that site. Let me go back to the refrigerator mode. This one had a 10-page manual on its site. So they do have descriptions on how the module is used, and I suspect I could look up this module as a commercial entity and see whether or not how much it costs, what kind of processor is in it. To give you an idea of when these things were designed, we're talking probably at least 6 to 8 years ago is when these were designed. There's probably newer ones by now, but that's what was designed back then. Okay, moving on. All right. And finally, what does your TV do when it's turned off? Well, there's a number of reasons why the TV will remain connected to Wi-Fi or occasionally check Wi-Fi. If you have a wake on LAN and standby mode, and you have your phone connected to the same LAN, you could wake up the TV just by sending a request to it. I have a similar wake on LAN capability with my NAS drive. So my NAS automatically turns off at 2 o'clock at night and goes into suspend mode. If I need it in the meantime to wake it up, I either with an app on my phone, I will try and reference the device, and it has a wake on LAN capability, and it will wake it up. And then it's available in about 30 seconds. This keeps it in suspend mode using less than a watt when I don't really need it. If I'm not around, I don't need it spinning. I could leave it running all the time and run Home Assistant on it if I wish, but my current Home Assistant's operation is about 3 watts all the time, and the NAS drive, when it's in operation, is about 20 because it's spinning hard drives. If you want to do updates, and my LG TV did an update recently when I was not expecting it, and all of a sudden I found, whoa, what's happening here? The TV did not go to the channel I expected to, and it came up and said was finishing its update. Like, okay. Any of the other LG WebOS features might also require it to remain active. If you want to use your phone as a remote control, that would be one reason it has to stay on. Do you want to turn this off? Yes, you can. You can go in and turn off your mobile TV settings. You can disable the quick start, but The downside is when somebody goes to turn on that TV, because your typical LG TV is sitting there with about 32 gigabytes of memory now. There's probably more storage on that than there's on this laptop. But that's what they have on it. So it fires up its little version of Linux out there, and that's what's going to happen. In fact, my LG TV does run a version of Linux. As I was warned by, I think, one of my Google accounts when I accessed YouTube, and it said, oh, you have another login from a Linux device at this address. So that gives you an idea of what is inside of the TV and what it's trying to do. Okay, I will do this. And if you have any questions, you may ask them now. All right, let's see if I can find this. That's not what I wanted. All right, where did you go?
While you're doing that, just a little update on Windows Secrets. It is now called AskWoody.com.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it is. It is called Ask Woody. Come to think of it, yes. All right. Suitable Linux and others. Open and send. There was another icon on my screen that I happened to accidentally click, and it was trying to do some sort of screen grab or something because everything went black for a second. All right, Dennis, you raised your hand.
Aren't some of the things submitted by companies, are there some like electronics or things that companies say are proprietary and they don't want to give it, or that doesn't exist in that world?
Well, the proprietary nature of some things is like the software. It might be something that can't be patented because it is something that's well known, and they choose not to share it because it would compromise the device by making it available to everyone. That's why you can't always find all of the source code, open source code. They may withhold the confidential portion so that somebody can't hack into it and compromise it because they found a vulnerability in that version of Linux. Yes, Wayne?
I got my Rainforest app working by deleting the app on my phone and reloading it.
Okay, well, that worked for you then.
Yep.
Sometimes I found when some things hang up like this, I have a similar thing with the Bird Buddy. My Bird Buddy app is sitting there, and when I fire it up, it shows me all the things that were there. Sometimes if the video doesn't work quite right, like I'll click on the video and it'll continue to play when I'm on a different screen where it's supposed to be showing an image, I'll say, oh, that's the app. What I will do is I will exit the app. I will go into Android and I'll say, find the app, and I'll do a force stop, clear cache, and then relaunch it. It's good. It's right as rain then. So that's another thing you can do without having to try and reinstall it, because when you delete it and reinstall it, you might be getting a newer version than what you expect, which may be exactly what you need, or it might be more than you asked for.
Well, rebooting the device, I unplugged it and plugged it back in. That didn't do any good at all. So
Okay, well, now you know that there might be a software issue in the app. Sometimes you can see by how much memory the app is using as to whether it has an issue. So you look at it now, right after you've restarted it, and it says, oh, it's using so many megabytes of memory or such. And then later, if it stops working, go in and look at it again and see whether or not the number has changed substantially. That would usually indicate a thing called a memory leak.
yeah.
When you
Well,
memory,
I went on Copilot and it told me to look and see if it was allowed on network, and it didn't show up on that in that part, under the settings. So I think that's what happened. Some way it got cleared out, and it wasn't allowed to be access the network. So
Oh, okay.
reloading the app, it asked about that. So I said
Does,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does your app work when you're away from your home?
I think it does. I
Okay.
can't remember.
Well, then,
I know
in
my-
which case, you'll have to allow it to use wireless data when
Yeah,
you're away from home to see whether or not it can work that way as well.
yeah, I have to try that. I know my ComEd app works away from home.
Yeah, ComEd will work because you're accessing the same common server in both cases. But
Yeah.
if you're doing something like with my Home Assistant, I can
Yeah.
use it here with a local address and just talk to it as IP address 179 or whatever it's at. Or if I'm outside of here, because I did subscribe with Nabu Casa, I have a different address to use that lets me go from outside in and look at my Home Assistant when I'm away from home. So there's a different way to access it when you're outside. You can use the same link in both places. It'll work inside or outside. It's just that if you try and use the outside one, the inside one outside, that doesn't work.
Well, I know I can use my garage thing from away from home. You know, lets me know whether the garage door is open or not.
And it's quite convenient to be able to know after you've gotten down the block and you said, did I leave the garage door open?
Right.
How many times has that happened? Way too many. Yeah, and
Yeah.
before I had this capability, I would turn around and go back. So I instead illegally operate my phone while I'm driving.
Yeah.
It's encouraging me to do that. But it is convenient. But I sort of wish that the Chamberlain people would allow you to access your camera and your garage door status in things like Home Assistant, because it would
Yeah.
make sense to be able to do that. But they deliberately change things so that it isn't supported, and they will modify their software when they have the opportunity. And the other thing that I like about the Chamberlain software that I do like about it is that if you do go way down deep into the diagnostics, it'll tell you how many times the garage door has opened and closed.
Yep. Yep.
And you want to know why that's valuable? Because when it reaches the lifetime of the spring, in
Right.
terms of openings and closings, you'll know it's about time to replace those springs.
Yeah.
So when you do have to replace them, the ones they normally bring to put in on your garage door are usually 10,000 cycle springs. Okay, that's not what you had installed when you first had this thing. Okay, you probably had at least 20,000 cycle springs. So when it gets to 20 and the spring breaks and they come out and put a 10 in and it breaks in half the time, like, why did this break so soon? What you can do, though, is you can say, when you come out to replace my springs, I want 50,000 cycle springs. They do make them. They're not cheap, about $100 a piece. But again, that'll be the last time they're replaced in my lifetime.
Yep.
But things you never even thought you could even figure out. But it is, yeah. And so that's like some of the places you can look for. And again, there are some reasons for having it proprietary, but there are places where they have to spill the beans a little bit about what this device does and whether it radiates properly and what its interference potential is in certain areas. Because you can get interference on other devices from adjacent channels if it isn't properly configured or used. That's why when some people decide, oh, I'm not getting good Wi-Fi coverage, I'm going to go and get WRT and I'm going to crank up the power on my device, and it might occasionally work, but it might generate more interference than you're expecting if you have multiple Wi-Fi LANs in your house. It's better to find a clear place for it to operate. If your devices support, like I've seen some of these switches, they say they just need 2.4 gigahertz. What they don't tell you is they do support 802.11n. And if you support 802.11n over 802.11g, just because it's using 802.11n's type of modulation schemes, it may have a twofold improvement over signal and path loss numbers because you're using N versus G. So if you can get everything to run on 802.11n, even on 2.4, and it doesn't have to be 40 megahertz N, it can be 20 megahertz N. You still can like double the distance that you can reach over 802.11g. It's not quite as good as 802.11b, which can go real far, but then it interferes with everyone. The problem with 802.11b is that it is unable to hear 802.11n and 802.11g. So it just broadcasts, and away it goes. And the only way to keep it from interfering is to enable a thing called request to send, clear to send. And if you do that, the 802.11g and N devices will broadcast a compatible header for the 802.11b devices. If it sees that are B devices present, it'll generate a 802.11b header with a clear to send for itself. And then that tells the B device, like, oh, somebody is on my channel. I should wait some period of time before I transmit. And that allows the G and N devices to communicate in the presence of Bs. But if you do have any 802.11b devices on your network, you'd be best moving them to a different SSID and moving them to a different channel so they don't interfere with the devices that you're trying to utilize. But again, I don't even know if anybody here probably even has an 802.11b device anymore, unless you have a real old laptop, Dennis. That particular laptop you described just might have 802.11b in it. Although G did show up in 2003, if it was pre-2003, it's a B device. I just happen to remember that one on the top of my head. Ask me that again tomorrow and I won't remember it. Any other questions? Feel free, we got lots of time here. Go ahead, Dennis.
So on those, you were talking about Puppy Linux and some of these others that still might run on low amount of RAM. Are they graphical at all? If the only thing I wanted to do was like read email with it, could it handle that? Or
They are.
Well, it
they are
will
graphical.
probably read email, but you're going to read email with Chrome, right?
with what?
You're going to read it with a browser of some sort, a Chrome browser perhaps, or Firefox?
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you got to have enough support depending on who you are logging into to read your email. So if you're running into Yahoo, well, then you got to deal with the interface, you know, how much resources does Chrome use in Yahoo? Or if you're reading Gmail, you got to see how much resources it uses, because the Chrome browser can chew up a lot of memory quickly, okay? And that's the issue you run into. Now, there is other ways of doing it. There are browsers that come with the Puppy Linux and the other smaller Linuxes, which are like a subset. They're not Chrome, and they're not Firefox. They're something else. But they may support and do a lot of the similar things, but not completely as filled out as Chrome and Firefox would normally do.
Okay.
You can test it by getting a bootable version of it And I can't remember what they call that particular name when you get the bootable version on the flash drive. Bob will probably fill in that for me.
That's Linux Live or the ISO.
Yes, the Linux Live or the ISO. You can usually, like I said, boot those into memory. They will run and let you get a trial before you install it on your hard drive. And then you can see how well it works. And then when you're happy with it, then you can install it and overwrite the hard drive. Or you can try and install it to run with the hard drive as a dual boot, but that's less likely on older machines. It used to work, but no guarantee it's still going to work. But you could boot the Linux. I used to do that all the time. There was a what was the one I was thinking of? DSL Linux, and it stood for Damn Small Linux. Was a very small Linux package that you could boot on a flash drive, and it would do a lot of these type of functions. So let's say you didn't have access to the machine, but you could boot up a USB drive. You could run this and access whatever the device is capable of doing.
Yeah, if you got like that DC600 and 610, odds are to get 4 gigs, you would have to have a BIOS update, which I doubt you'll ever see. And
unless you can find it on the Dell site, it might just have had a Dell site, may have had an upload way back when, but I think Dell discontinued a lot of their older machines.
Yeah, they did. And there you'd have to try and take a gamble on some third party having a pristine version of a later BIOS than what you've got.
Mm-hmm.
If it uses DDR2 memory, I probably have some, but most of mine are desktop. But I think I have a few SODIMMs.
Yeah, well, you could look around. If you have 2 machines and you want to make one work better than the other, you could take the memory out of one and put it into the other if it's got the slots. I don't recall if the D600 and D610 had more than 2 slots for memory. But if that's a possibility, I mean, I've done that with HPs before where I took memory out of one HP, put it in another module, and it was fine. And they were both DDR2. So that's a possibility. I'm pretty sure, though, that the D610 is a 802.11b for Wi-Fi. So you're going to either have to use the Ethernet port that's on it, or you're going to have to disable the onboard Wi-Fi and use an external USB Wi-Fi if you want to be able to do 802.11n or even G. Probably have a D600 around here somewhere. I'm just trying to remember where. I think it's in the basement somewhere, along with the other 30 machines. But again, you can look around and see if there's other machines that are available, like a refurb machine that may, some people have turned in machines that have issues with their cases or whatever. I have a 17-inch laptop in the other room right now that the people that were using it had an issue with it not being able to close because there's something wrong with the hinge on the graphics panel that I haven't looked at yet, but I will at some point in time. But that ran Windows 11, and it ran it with an Intel, one of the small Intel processors. Not really overpowered. It was like an i5 equivalent. And it had enough memory, and that one had both an SSD and a hard drive inside of it because it was a 17-inch display. So some of them, if you look around, you might be able to find one that is relatively inexpensive that you could do things with that can go to 64-bit mode. That's important too. You want to find something in that 64-bit territory. and that sure beats trying to read everything on a tablet. Yes. Bert.
Dennis had asked a question at one of the meetings about making fonts. And I saw that I have a program called Microsoft Font Maker, which I've had somewhere in my system for a while. I don't know if it's still available or not, but it lets you.
Was that pre-XP? Was that Windows 98?
I don't know where it came from, but it's still there, and it still works.
Oh, geez. Now that's amazing.
Look up Microsoft Font Maker.
Yeah. Yeah, it has it at least as of 2018 in the Microsoft Store. So there might still be, yeah. You can use your pen to create a custom font based on the nuances of your own handwriting. Okay.
It has a grid of each letter,
Yeah.
and then you create whatever you want that letter to look like.
If you want a TTF font creator, there's a free font editor called Bird Font, which lets you create vector graphics and export both TTF, OTF, and SVC fonts. SVG, sorry. There's other ones that are out there too. I think TTF is still used too. And that will work both on Apple and Microsoft. There's another couple of font generators as well. Font Struct and Font Forge. If you're going to be building your own fonts from scratch. And there's another one called Calligrapher, which turns your handwriting into a font. So that's pretty much like what the Microsoft Font Maker is doing as well.
Well, yeah, just if it helps to anybody.
You have too much time on your hands if you're making your own font, Dennis. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I have this Windows 10 machine that I bought, 3-4 years ago. And I brought this up before at meetings. The only thing I use this machine for is my financial stuff. So I'll load TurboTax on it. I may do some spreadsheets on it, but I don't connect this machine to the internet other than to transmit back and forth TurboTax updates. I don't connect it for browsing, anything.
So you have all the updates turned off and everything on it.
Correct. So it hasn't gotten updates for years. So my question is, if I want to bite the bullet, and we had this guy give presentations, I can't remember his name. He gave us 5 presentations on upgrading from 10 to 11. Tim had him on, and he was doing those. If I wanted to bite the bullet and say, okay, well, let me try to upgrade this machine to Windows 11 because I don't have a Windows 11 machine. What would be the maximum amount of time it might, from scratch, do this? Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? I mean, I know it updates just a little at a time, right?
Well, no, it depends on whether or not the machine is capable of running Windows 11 or not. So if you have verified already that it has all of the requirements to meet Windows 11, I'm not sure if it's still out there, but there used to be a Windows 11 suitability program that you would run to verify that this machine has all of the requirements available.
PC Health Check is in the Microsoft Store. You can download it. It'll tell you the basics. There's another third-party program. I can't remember what it was for sure, but I think it was like Why Not 11? And it gives you even more detailed information. And you download it from like Softronics, Major Geeks, and a few other places like that.
Yeah, but the thing
so
is,
it can be upgraded.
It might be able to be updated. It's got to meet certain requirements.
All these do is check to see, does that machine meet the minimum requirements for Windows 11? Yes or no? And if
Yeah.
it's a no, they give you some indication why not. Now, if that machine is not a business class machine that you are talking about, it
It's not.
won't probably have the TPM module, so it may that alone would kill it. The other is the CPU chip has to be 8th gen Intel or 2000 or higher series of AMD Ryzen chip, and a couple other low end like Celeron and Pentium made by even AMD do work, but not the original ones.
Yeah. So if you have a certain Ryzen 5s don't work. Newer Ryzen 5s do. You have to they have at least an Intel 8th generation, so it'll be like an 87 or 85 or something like that as the processor number. So if you fire it up and you go into the settings system about and look down there and see what kind of processor is running on this thing. If it's a 4th or 5th generation, not likely to go to Windows 11.
Okay.
So depending on when you got it and how you got it, depends a lot. Most of my machines that I was using were 2nd and 3rd generation Intel, and they weren't going to make it. And they always ran hot for me. So when I decided to go find a machine, I looked for one that, this one I'm running on right now is a Lenovo. And I wanted to make sure it had at least 16 gig of memory. I couldn't find anything larger than that on the Ryzen chips without getting a customized one from somebody who's taken it apart and broke the warranty and expanded it himself and then sold it as new, which I didn't want. So I bought this one, and it was between 7 and 8. Not too bad. And this one has a 1920 by 1080 screen and a 16-inch screen. So it's big enough to see with my glasses, and it's fast enough to run anything I need to do. Wayne, you have your hand raised. Yeah, you're muted.
Has anybody used the G-parted option to load Windows 11 on a non-functional Windows 10 computer that doesn't have the TPM in it?
GPU is G-parted is a partitioning manager. It does not do what you're asking to do. You
look up on YouTube, and it goes through what it does. You download the ISO from Microsoft, and look it up. There's several different YouTube articles that tell you how to go about it.
The only reason you're putting G-parted on is you're trying to preserve some of the original data on the machine that doesn't boot. So you're using G-parted to try and make a new partition inside of the existing one?
No, it what it does is it makes an ISO. You do an ISO on a USB, and then you load this new ISO in.
You don't need to use G-parted to load a new ISO, though. It'll write over the existing one if you want.
You use that to create the ISO from that's on the USB.
I think you may be thinking about Rufus.
Yes, Rufus.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rufus.
Rufus is a tool. That one will, when you're ready to write, at last, it will give you some options that you can ignore the CPU if it's too old, ignore the TPM not being there, etc. Right. If I also would recommend, I think it's the 3rd or 4th entry, you want to have a local account. You put the name of the local account in there, and when it loads up, it'll create that local account directly. But you are now talking running 11 on unsupported hardware. Now, that comes with risks. I use it myself. I don't necessarily promote it because bottom line is you're on your own. You cannot call Microsoft and say, I got a problem with your Windows 11. Fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to laugh their butt off when they find out it's unsupported hardware and hang up the phone.
The one thing you may run into, however, using Rufus, if you're trying to use any of the Windows 11 Insider builds, recently Microsoft started doing stuff to make the Rufus downloads fail
Right.
when
Yeah.
they're trying to use the Insider loads.
But you
Yeah,
can
that-
you can go to Microsoft's own downloads, download the ISO, use Rufus, say use this ISO I just downloaded of 11, and it'll use it quite readily. In fact, that's usually the way I do it myself anyhow. I just
So that-
download the ISO directly from Microsoft. I don't have the problem that some people lately with trying to get Rufus to download the copy and then
No,
burn it.
no, no.
But the other
Yeah.
thing too is when you do it that route, you have another problem, and that is all the bloat. The bloat is mostly the AI and the telemetry of 11. You don't want that stuff running on a unsupported version of 11. You want just native 11 OS. So what you have to do is there's two types of tools. Type 1 will take the ISO and debloat it, giving you a new ISO image that is debloated and optimized. Type 2 says, I've already got the ISO loaded into the machine. The machine is running, and it is a debloater and optimizer after the fact, especially if you already have your custom programs loaded in and you do have existing data files. Even though you need backups of that stuff first, it will then debloat it within that operating system. If something goes wrong, you restore that backup. I've been playing with that for a number of years, Nat, and they keep getting better and better and better.
One thing I've toyed with the idea for my older machines, like my Windows 10 machines, is to contemplate putting something like Zorin OS, which mimics the Windows 10 interface and can access the Win 10 images if it's on a different file system or you partition the file system, so that you have an interface that looks pretty much like Windows 10, but runs a different OS, so you don't have to worry about updates.
Yeah, but there have been versions of that kind of stuff out of Brazil for years. The original company is Linux FX, and they have a free and a paid version. The paid version is for support like you would want to have for a business. And the current version, they've had a couple name changes in between, is now called WINUX. That's the current version of that one. And believe me, I cannot believe Microsoft hasn't been trying to haul them into court because they're taking direct imagery from real Windows 10, real Windows 11, and using it. And that's illegal. You can make your own version similar to it, but you cannot use the original because that's copyright infringement to start with.
Yeah. So, Wayne, this machine that you wanted to upgrade, is it a laptop or a desktop?
It's a laptop.
It is a laptop. If you didn't mind moving it to something that's smaller but requires an external display, there's always the mini PC route, because those machines are a lot cheaper, and you have to use an external monitor on them and keyboard and mouse, but all told, the physical footprint and the power use is pretty close to the amount what a laptop would use. And you can buy a new machine that's capable of running Windows 11 and probably 3 more generations after that, running with like a Ryzen 7 or a Ryzen 9 if you want even more power.
Yeah, also on that laptop, if you, I would
Yes, sir.
recommend seriously it have 8 gigs of memory, whether you're wanting to run Linux or Windows 11 unsupported. Those are the recommended. You don't go down to 4. 4
No,
will
no.
run, but it's slower, and you may not like the operation of it. So 8 gigs is the absolute minimum you want to have on any laptop, even a regular desktop.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into the minis. You just have to have any kind of a desktop system that requires a separate monitor, keyboard, and mouse. 8 gigs is the minimum. And
And
because
if
of
it's the graphics card is sharing memory, you probably want closer to 16 as the minimum
yeah,
now.
or sometimes you can get by with a 12, but not always. At least it's an interim, because bottom line is right now with the cost of machines and the key components in the machines being so extreme, a lot of machines that you may be buying now, they're only going to come with 8 gigs of memory. They're not selling 16 and 32 usually, because they already know the cost of the memory is so great that most people are going to say, I'm not buying, but with 8 gigs, they might buy.
Yeah, but 8 is you're hamstrung at 8 if you're trying to do much more than one web browser window at a time.
Right.
So
You can
if
do
you
a
can
little
find
bit
it
more,
and
but
afford
not
the
much.
16, that's the minimum. 32 is the sweet spot.
Yeah, but 32 gigs these days, wow. And if you want even more, like 64 or 96, 128, you better have some deep pockets.
By the way, Tim, your audio is coming out really loud.
I don't have it set loud. I've had some machines here lately changing their settings.
I just don't want anybody to complain when they see the video. I have run mini PCs, and I've also priced them, including recently. And their prices are actually rising faster than full-size PCs or laptops,
Yeah.
at least for comparable specs.
If you had, like I said, if that's the option, and you look at all the options first, and then see where it's better to, if you really want to move to 11, make sure I can get a machine that is going to last past the first load. And I just was surprised today on this machine, or yesterday, when it upgraded itself, or was it, okay, reboot to finish installing Windows 11 25H2. Like, oh, you did an upgrade behind my back. No wonder it was running slower during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that it'll do 26 and 27 as well. If we're all going to be able to do that, who knows?
Well, I've got 3 laptops. I've got a Windows 11, a Windows 10, and a Linux. So,
Boy, you can do it with only 3. I'm sitting here with about 6 machines off to my side.
Oh, is that all? Heck,
Well, that's
I've
just on
got
my
4
left.
here.
That's just on the left. On the right, there's another 4 or 5 over there,
Look, I've
and
got-
there's about 20 downstairs.
Over here to my right, I got 6 machines, including in front of me, and in laptops, I've got probably 16 laptops on my left side.
1, 2,
And that doesn't include the other machines in the rest of the living room and kitchen.
Okay, let's do that. I see somebody trying to join here.
I think I know who that is.
Yeah, I know who it is too.
But anyway,
Yeah,
I'm beginning to feel a little bit inferior with just my 5 PCs before I got rid of the old Chromebook.
oh, I need to get rid of these. It's just that they have stuff on them that I have to recycle off of them first to make sure they don't go anywhere else.
Yeah,
So I'm surprised. I've seen people put backup. I was in the Salvation Army, and I was walking through, and I looked in the knickknacks and everything, and I found a couple of Seagate the Seagate backup drives sitting there. Like, wonder if they were smart enough to erase them before they gave them away.
Well, with me lately, Nat, see, I started doing SSDs in place of hard disk back in 2012 or 13 as I could afford them, and I got bigger drives. And of late, suddenly I'm buying these cheap lots of 120, 128 drives, going into those machines, and usually I never used anywhere close to half the capacity of those internal drives. I'll switch them over to a 120, 128, and then I got the bigger drive available for other more modern needs.
Well, as long as you don't use much of it for a very long time, you're probably okay. But if you're using more than half of it, you won't get much more than 3 to 5 years out of it before it hits its expiration.
Yeah, but I mean, 3 to 5 years, I might not be here that long. So am I going to worry
we
about
always have that possibility. It's just, I noticed my daughter, she was depressed by the fact that she had to replace her SSD on one of her gaming machines. And I said, well, how old is it? And she said, it's over 5 years old. I said, yep, it's probably expired.
Well, the
She
other
just
thing,
used it for the OS, but yeah, had to get a new one.
the other thing is some of the techs are making YouTube videos even. One of them said it should be outlawed that they are soldering the SSDs onto the motherboard. You can't expand your storage. You cannot change your memory because they've been soldering that on for a long time besides the CPU. So basically speaking, whatever you buy, that's it. It's never going to change. It might die, but it's not going to change.
Well, by contrast, I recently bought a computer from the Framework company. And you name me a component and I'll tell you whether or not it can be upgraded. Probably the answer is yes. Including the main board, including any of the ports, which is what went bad on my Chromebook, and just anything inside of there. The screen would be a little more difficult, but anything else.
The only thing that's a problem with the screen is that if they only give you the screen, you got to take the display area apart, and the screws that sometimes hold the screen to the back are microscopic. You got to have an electron microscope to see the darn things.
They're just T4 security torques.
Yeah.
T4 is okay, but when you start getting smaller,
T2 and T3 are ridiculous.
I've seen some.
Those aren't screws; those are brads.
They're not even brads.
They're meant to be hammered in.
You can actually better off taking a few drops of crazy glue and gluing the dang thing in.
Yeah.
Well, some of them aren't much more than that. And if you want to desolder, then you have to invest in a hot air desoldering machine with the vacuum attachment, so you can pull the solder off of the pins, and then you could replace it. Yeah, it's called a solder rework station. But you have to have a deft hand and not too much tremors to be able to do that without blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
But it can be done. I mean, it's a pain. And when they glue the back on to begin with, I mean, it's already trying to tell you something. It's not going to be pretty once you put it back together again.
Yeah, fortunately,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, fortunately, my Chromebook was much more repairable. It was an Asus C302 CA, which is one of the more repairable Chromebooks. But
Yeah.
most Chromebooks, they're glued.
Yeah, I mean, there's specific Dells were able to be done, and some of the HPs, but not lots. Beyond that, forget it. And if you buy a machine now, and if you look to see, well, let's get the hardware manual first and see how easy is it to take the back off. Oh, 5 screws? Okay, good. I'm going to buy that one. Can I update the memory? Yes, I can update the memory. Can I put another M.2 drive in at the same time? Yes, I can do that. That was what sold me on this one. Making sure I could go in and changing things. I mean, the Surface books look kind of nice, but they're not changeable. You can't go in and do anything with them.
Yeah. Whatever you get with Surface, it's one of these cases like a lot of the Apple products and that. Whatever you bought, that's it. It's not going to change.
Yeah. And what I've planned to do with some of my old Win 10 machines is, like I said, put something like Zorin on it, see if it still works, and just use it as is that way for some of the web browsing or whatever. It's a possibility. But right now, most of the stuff I'm doing is on the phone. But the phones, look at what a phone has done now. I mean, if you go and get a new phone, I think the smallest phones you can get are like 6 gig now, and usually they're 8 or 16, and they will have at least, if you have anything less than 128 of storage on it, you're too small because you'll fill it up with an Android really quick on Android 14.
Yeah, but that's going to be much, much more costlier here this year and next year for sure, because contracts already exist for 2 years for the key components, and they're already pushing into a third year.
Well, I've seen a couple of alternatives that if I have to move, I'm still not going to have to spend much more than I paid for these phones to begin with, which is, considering the cost of money has gone up, that's not too bad. So, but I'm not buying an $800 or $900 Pixel here either. My daughter and her husband can buy that. I'll stick with my old Motorola stylus G's. Cost effective. This is 2023. Although I'm thinking about a 2025 or 26 for my next one. But of course, none of them have the same form factor, so I'll have to find different cases from somebody else. Because when the case broke on this one, I had to order a new one. Guess what? The guy who made the case before doesn't make that anymore. And then my wife's curling iron failed, the one that we bought 6 years ago. I could buy the exact same thing again on Amazon. Click, done. It's here tomorrow. Can't do that with a PC though. Okay. Anything else? How about suggestions for other
Dennis
programs?
got
Anybody
something.
got anything that they would like to hear?
Dennis
Dennis.
has his hand up.
Yeah.
Just one more question. So if I end up not being able to, restrictions not upgrade the Windows 10 machine to 11, and I end up having to buy a Windows 11 machine, I've never bought a machine before where I had a Microsoft account. I've always created a local account. And I'm wondering, I don't know, should I be fighting the scheme of things? What is my real downside in getting the mic,
There
letting it do the Microsoft account privacy alone, or are there functional issues as well?
There's
You
very
will
little
run
functional.
into issues with a local account because Microsoft is moving toward the online accounts.
Right.
I don't know how you were planning on purchasing any other utilities to go with it, because laptops don't come with Microsoft Word out of the box anymore. If you want an Office program, you're going to have to find a way to purchase either a one-time purchase or a subscription. If you get a subscription, it's going to be linked to a Microsoft account. So one way or the other, they're going to probably get you into a Microsoft account if you have a need for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook.
The only way you can get, there's only a couple ways left that may work to create a local account. They're not too bad, but they're not for the average person to figure out how to achieve it. But there are a few ways that seem to still work to create the local account, and without using Rufus to do it.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to I'm not so gung ho about fighting it. I just want to know, okay, if I finally give in and get the Microsoft account, is there any big downside? And I guess
There's
Basically,
there's one downside. It's called OneDrive.
oh, it's more than that. You got the AI, and you have more telemetry.
Yeah,
But
they took out some of the telemetry though in the recent release of 25.
And the thing is, with Windows 11 at least, it's a case where you can run local and probably do anything and everything you want to do and not miss the extra features that normally are coming with 11. And you'll have less telemetry without doing any extra steps. In other words, you're going to shut down some of the causes of the extra bloat, like AI and the telemetry, by just not having that Microsoft account. Now, I have used for decades Microsoft accounts for my standard account, but my administrator is a local account only. And for that, it is getting harder and harder to do a brand new install on any machine, supported or unsupported, and create the local account to begin with. But at least for the unsupported, you have to use something like Rufus, and you can specify in the specifications, I want to create a local account, and here's the name I want on the local account, and it's done. But when you go out and buy one, you're buying it off the shelf. And because you're buying it off the shelf, it's already got 11 in it. And when you plug it in and you turn it on, it starts running the installation completion for Windows 11. And you have to know up front any of the ways to not create a Microsoft account that still work. And I don't think you're likely to be able to achieve it.
Yeah. Do you have
More than
to?
likely, it's not going to be that easy to do. I just bought the bullet and said, so I'll put in a Microsoft account. It doesn't have to be the same. It can be a unique one, a brand new one. Find an address you like. I've done this on several new machines that I've set up for people, and they live with it. They don't even have to read that Outlook account ever, because I noticed they haven't. Okay, so they don't use the email account they set up with Microsoft, but it's there. When you buy Microsoft Office 365, you have to be real careful on how you purchase it, so that you either are looking for the classic that does not include the Copilot, or you're going to end up paying more for Copilot. Microsoft is going to start learning that trying to bundle Copilot in with everything doesn't work for everyone. So there is still a version out there for the family where you said, I'm not going to pay for the Copilot, and it allows you to do that when you renew that says, oh, you can stay on the legacy. So that will keep Copilot in from that venue. If you don't enable or turn on any of the other Copilot options, they won't show up on your machine either. You can decide to not use them and it doesn't interfere. I don't have the recall screen, but I don't want it. So that's fine.
Are you forced into using this OneDrive, or you can right away
the first thing you do with OneDrive is configure it properly. Okay, before you put anything on it, you go in and disable all of the syncing. Okay, by turning off all of the syncing and then saying there's an advanced options on the bottom that says, if you did copy anything to the OneDrive, bring it back to this hard drive and leave it here all the time. So you do that, you're safe most of the time. It can be turned back on in a heartbeat every time you go into a Microsoft Word or an Excel or a PowerPoint and you downloaded it from someplace else and they said, oh, you should save this on your OneDrive right now. You click that button, you've just enabled OneDrive again, and it's going to start copying your files away. And now you got to go back in, turn it off, and then say copy it all back and leave it alone. Once I did that, it's pretty much there, but nothing goes out to OneDrive. Otherwise, some people I know turn on OneDrive and then all of a sudden they can't find anything because the minute they've saved something to their hard drive, it squirrels it off to the OneDrive and it disappears off their hard drive. Right. And they can't find it on their desktop anymore.
Right.
There is another thing to save it in. And this is the secret that not too many people have been aware of. If you want to save something and you don't ever want it to go to OneDrive, put it in downloads.
Okay.
Downloads is never synced with OneDrive.
There is a couple other things. If you do go out and buy a new machine, go in when you set it up. You'll probably set it up with the Microsoft account. Go into settings, privacy and security, and see if BitLocker is turned on. If it is, I suggest turn that off. That also neuters the Windows 11 features that you may not want to mess with to begin with. Another possibility, and this depends on whether they have locked it down or not, go into the account settings for the machine. To begin with, you should always have a separate administrator account, which is the first thing that's created, or a second that's a standard user account. You can, in the past, go into the account manager to each one of those accounts and say, I want to do local only. And it used to bring it down on the machine to a local account. But of late, the last 3 or 4 months now, they have been trying to find every one of these loopholes and stop them from allowing you to have local accounts.
Okay.
Yeah, and you want to turn off, you will not see BitLocker if it's Windows 11 Home. Windows 11 Pro is probably what you should be doing. And if it comes with BitLocker on, the first thing you should do is turn it off and wait for it to finish unlocking all the files.
Some of the 11 homes do have the BitLocker on.
I've never seen one with Home.
Yes, Windows Security on the Home Edition turns on BitLocker.
Yes.
For all laptops.
And as soon as you create your account, one of the first things Microsoft does, they take your BitLocker key and move it up to your Microsoft account in the cloud. If anybody shows up from a legal authority just with a subpoena, not a warrant that a judge approved, they will give them that locker key. And if they've got your machine, they now can get into your locked up machine. There's documented cases that have occurred already.
Yeah, you don't want them to do that.
Ice for computers.
Yeah, you don't want ice. No ice. Or as they say south of the border, seen ice.
It's just one of these things that you got. If you don't keep up with the news of what the hell's going on, there have been so much changes in Windows and in Linux. It makes your head spin. The only one that I see very little change going on per se is Mac OS. So if you don't like change, Mac OS might be your cup of tea.
Well, I can see that Sid logged in with only 10 minutes left, so I think we better give him the floor for a moment here.
I just got the email.
Oh, I'm sorry
You
about
were
that. I sent it
reading
out late,
tonight.
Sid. I apologize for that.
So
I was kind of busy today.
No, that's why I'm here so late. I just found out that it was going tonight, and so I figured I'd take a chance that you were still going and see if I could get the PDF if you have one.
It's on the way. I sent it via email to you.
Okay, and if there's a way to actually see the video, because this was my topic that I asked for.
Too bad. Too bad.
I will. I'll
You
make
missed-
sure you get a copy. Yes.
I was booking a trip today, and it took the thread is now 36 emails long.
Oh,
I finally got it booked. Then the invoice was wrong. Then they corrected the invoice, but now they're telling me to go to a link to pay, but I already gave them the credit card to pay. My God, I didn't think going to the Galapagos was this difficult, but hey,
Next time, walk.
on water,
Of course.
that would be an interesting thing. No, I mean you spend so much time studying the best time to go. Then you spend so much time studying what ships go there. Then you spend time studying because the rules of Ecuador, they have to follow 3 different loops. And they're not allowed to touch the same spot within 2 weeks. So you work a jigsaw puzzle trying to get a route that goes to all the places you want to get to. Then you got to get it. Then you're a solo, and to get a ship that follows the route you want, that has a cabin available, that doesn't want to charge 100% double for solo, and by the time you're done, you just get to pound your head.
Why don't you just go to Canada instead? You can drive.
I've been to 95 countries. I've been to most of Canada. This is one of my 3 remaining places that I haven't done. Galapagos, South Pacific, New Zealand, and Israel. My rabbi makes fun of me that I haven't been to Israel, but
you haven't been to Israel, Sid?
I was on a cruise that went from Istanbul to Dubai through the Suez. Was supposed to have 4 days in Israel. At the last minute, it diverted to Cyprus because they were having some bombing going off in Israel. I tried.
3 times.
Well, I tried. Hopefully we'll get there. I'm getting them one by one.
One thing about going to Israel on business, which I had to do, is each time you leave, it becomes harder to get out of the country. No problem walking in. You just walk right in. But when you're trying to leave, the first time, they just say, hey, have a nice time. Come back and see us again. Second time, they say, are you sure nobody else could have done that work here? And they quiz you a little bit more, and then they let you go. third time, we had the twins, the two little girls that would talk to one of us, and one would talk to the other. Then they would go swap and talk again, and then they would go and compare stories. And if you guys didn't have the right story, you're never getting out of here.
One of the mistakes I made was using AI to help with trip planning.
Yeah.
I get what you're thinking. Forget the part here that it gives out of date wrong information, which it does quite a bit. Forget the part that it's suggesting what you write to the travel company, which if you wrote what it said would not go over well. Forget that it's trying to get you to go on ships that have nothing to do with what you want because you told it you can't swim, so it's only looking for big ships.
Sounds like you had fun.
Well, I mean, I learned a lot. I honestly, playing with Gemini, playing with Copilot, playing with Perplexity, I learned a lot. I learned that, for one thing, I would feed one of their answers into the other one, and it would respond back to the other AI.
You didn't happen to have Claude and Grok as well.
I've been playing with Claude, and I love what Claude can do. I wanted to, here, you'll like this, Ed. What I wanted was a system where I could put in Facebook posts. Then I wanted to capture all the comments. I wanted to define them, whether they were Democrat, Republican, Independent, or undefined. Then I wanted to be able to categorize the different people, because I swear the same people are posting the same comment 100 times over on all these threads, but I want to be able to confirm that. And I told Claude all of this, and it developed a full database system using SQLite. It wrote the front end. It wrote the reporting system.
And you found out that aliens are posting it.
It's and the only thing I have to then had to install is Python, which is what it all runs under.
It sounds like we have our next meeting presenter right here with Claude.
me, or let Claude do the presentation.
Almost.
What's funny is I was telling Gemini 3 Pro what I was trying to put together. And Gemini 3 Pro got its hackles up and said, "You don't want Claude to do this. You want me to do this. I'm better at coming up with the specs than Claude is. I'll give you the prompts to give Claude in the end, but I'll do a better job putting together."
I'm surprised it didn't say, "But Claude is a memory hog."
But in the end, it was somewhat correct, because I then fed the .py file back into Gemini, and it found multiple mistakes, which I then posted to Claude, and Claude said, "That's correct. Let me fix those." And it regenerated again the code. For instance, Claude had created an incorrect import system, not quite understanding how Facebook comments were formatted. Gemini fully understood how they were formatted and how to lay it out and what it should look like. And as I said, Claude, once it saw that structure, said, "You're right, I was wrong," and it regenerated everything again.
Did you ask Claude to tell you which one of those Facebook posts was AI generated as well?
I haven't done that. I've used Perplexity to determine whether it was likely a bot or not.
Okay.
That I've done, and it's not particularly helpful for that, because frankly, you have to keep challenging it, and then you're right. There are only 3 posts total, and all 3 have the same picture. But it won't get that up front, so you have to keep working your way through it. But the other one, Claude, was really useful. I said I wanted a database for all my movies. so I can look up movies and sort them by category. And I listed those out and the stuff I wanted, and it generated the system. And then I came back and said, I'd like to also be able to do TV series, but then I need the series and seasons and episodes. And it regenerated it with all that in as well and put it in the system. And that's rather cool that you can
Now,
actually
I
do
would
that.
love to have something that I don't know if Claude or Gemini can do this for me. I wanted to go into the Netflix account I share and tell me which things I've already watched.
I do that, but I use Real Good for that, and I have to check a box that I've seen something. But Real Good is real good at, and not only that, it's across all the services, so it does a wonderful job of being able. It's REEL, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's like a movie reel.
Right. It's
but-
just
but-
that I'm so many times. Did I see this before? I know I'd seen this before. It was rotten the first time I saw it.
But anyway, so you play enough with these AIs, and what you find out is they are in some ways can be helpful in keeping your information. If we had more time, which we don't, I actually had Gemini break down what information it had stored about me, how it had stored it, and how it was using it in detail. And that was a fascinating discussion. I had to keep steering it because it wanted to keep going to other things, and I kept focusing it back on what I wanted. And finally, it did a really good job of breaking down not only what it has about a person, but how it gets it and how it uses it and how it rates it. So it's fascinating stuff of what it's doing. I told I think this was Gemini. It might have been Copilot, but I think it was Gemini that I was a computer club president. That colored every single answer after that. I mean, I could ask for the weather, and it would say, as a computer club president, you probably want to know this.
Well, I've had to ask ChatGPT what it knew about me in the past, and it put me down as a CCS president. And I said, "You got that wrong. Never was president."
It's the worst was Copilot. Copilot gave me spent an hour with me trying to put some data together. And at the end, after I researched it, I went back and because you can go back in your history, I went back there and I said, in this topic, if you look at what you told me, it's really this. And it said, you're right, and you're correct to be angry with me. Everything I said was wrong.
Interesting.
And the other thing is, these systems like to apologize.
Let's see.
Yes, they do. They're very polite. You almost think they're Canadians.
Sid, one of the big keys to doing AI, you must always give it feedback of what you tried out and what the results of what you tried out to correct the future information that's spit out by you or other people.
Tim, I love that statement because it gets to something else here. I went through this discussion with Perplexity, and I had been regularly doing that and correcting it. And it kept sort of cycling around. And I asked it finally, does any of the corrections I give you factor in future answers? And it said no. It doesn't, because the structuring of the data doesn't allow it to take individual corrections and remember them past past a session.
Well,
it defines as a session.
I don't know about the session part, but most of them do learn from what you give them in feedback. It usually will tell you, you're correct with the feedback you gave me, and therefore I'm going to adjust things. But if it doesn't remember it past the session, that's wrong, because they're most of the AI models are constantly learning new stuff, and therefore the corrections should be remembered and correct the information there forward.
But that's not what it actually does. And it admits it's not what it actually does. Now it remembers data particles, I think it almost called them, pieces about your life, things you told it, and it stores those. But it doesn't store if it got something wrong and you corrected it. For the most part, it doesn't. But here's what's interesting. You do prompts. And in most of these, you can define assumptions, for lack of a better term. And somebody wrote a set called God mode. It's this whole list of things that you tell default the AI to deal with. One of those items is never apologize. Another one is state everything shorter instead of longer if you can. Another one is don't assume my knowledge level when you're giving an answer to a basic question. And it's got a whole bunch of these, and those are then taken in every time that it runs a new session. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Somebody rewrote some of them and made a boss mode instead of a God mode version. But it is a fascinating way to edit that down and not have that same repetitive stuff. I mean, what gets me the most was Perplexity likes to say, I can tell you're frustrated, or I'm sorry, I'm frustrated. And I kept, Tim, you want to talk about not learning. I have told that 12 times. I am a human being here, but I'm a geek. I'm a computer guy. I don't do frustrated. I'm trying to correct you to get it right. And it finally said, this only lasts for one session, and next time I'm sorry, but
I'll be dumb again. Yeah.
Yeah, but I won't remember this again. So it'll again start telling you that you're frustrated.
Well, I've had a little bit better luck than you.
Yeah. And on the subject of being ridiculous,